Hello, baby. Did you miss me?
No, fuck off.
It's time to finally address one of the biggest memes on this channel, or at least the biggest meme in recent memory. Simply visit the comment section on any of my recent videos and you'll witness demands for the most Australian character that NetherRealm has ever made. Although some viewers are more direct and just ask for the Kaino video. So I finally decided to make like a genie and grant your deepest desires, but here's the deal. In exchange for my extreme generosity, you must gift me a like and share this video on social media. That's the cost of such a demanding request. And now, without any further ado, let's begin our discussion of the most Australian character that NetherRealm has ever made. And I want to make sure you're sitting down right now, okay? If you're driving, pull over, park the car, because I'm gonna blow your minds right away. Because Kaino, the character that you all know and love so deeply, is not Australian. Impossible, you say? Well, let me ask you this. Is Kaino an Australian name? Can you find it anywhere? No, you can't, because Kaino's not an Australian name. It's in fact a Japanese name. Why? Because Kaino himself is half Japanese ever since the first game. In fact, real quick, let's hit up Dr. Google to find out the actual meaning behind Kaino's Japanese name. Wow, seriously? Man, I've got to give it to Kaino because his name means one's masculine power or capability. That's nuts. So you're telling me that Kaino's name essentially means testosterone. That's nuts. His name is just actually testosterone. He's masculine power. Wow. I won't lie to you, as far as names go, that's a pretty bomb name. I want a name that means pure masculine power. That's awesome. That's really dope. Why does Kaino take so many L's then? His name means masculinity and power, but he's constantly taking L's in every single game. Developers, what are you doing? His name is masculinity personified. Why is he losing all the time? Is it meant to be a joke? Is it meant to be ironic? I guess that is possible. Like, his name means amazing things, but he never accomplishes anything. It's like meant to be ironic. That's cruel. That's cruel if so, developers. That's mean. You've done your boy Kaino super dirty, man. That's rough. Poor Kaino. But yeah, as you can see, Kaino's name is actually Japanese. I'm sorry to drop a bomb on you like that, but once again, I asked you to pull over. I asked you to sit down because I knew it would blow your mind. Although now that I think of it, it makes more sense for Kaino to be Japanese because his gang name is the Black Dragon. And that only makes sense if your character is Japanese or it's somewhat Asian, because no offense to Australians, but I don't think they would name their mascot after a dragon. Or at least not in the early 90s. Maybe now because everyone loves dragons. Dragons are the it thing. Every fantasy novel has a dragon on it. I get it. They're popular now. But back in the 90s, they weren't quite as popular. And then on top of that, there's so many awesome dangerous animals that live in Australia that are better named for your gang. So like, I don't know, maybe the bull sharks or something. That's a cool gang name. I don't think Kaino the Australian would name his gang the Black Dragons, is all I'm saying. And now's the part where I cut to the chase, all right? No more beating around the bush, because I know all of you are begging to know why Kaino is so obviously Australian in the later games. Even though I've proven to you that Kaino was originally Japanese, it's pretty clear that in later games, he's definitely meant to be Australian. And how did that happen? Well, I will tell you, it actually happened because of the original Mortal Kombat movie. And to clarify, I'm talking about the 1995 movie, not the Zoomer movie that came out recently that has mixed opinions. I'm talking about the god tier movie that everyone celebrates to this day. It's honestly a really fun movie. If you haven't seen it, then you owe it to yourself. I'm not gonna say it's God's gift to filmmaking because it's not, but as far as game movies go, it's completely tolerable. I mean, me personally, I don't even consider it the best video game adaptation movie, but it's still pretty good. It's a fun popcorn flick. And this movie is actually the first time we see Kaino portrayed as an Australian. And to my understanding, that wasn't actually the filmmaker's idea. That was all the actor. And that version of Kaino was so well accepted and so popular that the game developers just kept the ball rolling, and ever since he's been Australian. And already that's interesting enough, but here's the funniest part. The actor himself is not even Australian. He was born in the United Kingdom. If that actor himself had chosen not to make Kaino Australian, then he wouldn't be Australian in any of the future games, and you wouldn't be bugging and harassing me in the comments section. Man, I want to go to that timeline. And then for another fun fact, the actor is also a professional boxer who then became an actor afterwards, and even so, he still lost to a tiny blonde lady. Man, that's rough. If you want to know what rock bottom looks like, this is it. That's what rock bottom is. You're a professional boxer, you fight your whole life, become an actor, get bodied by a tiny blonde girl. But there you have it, everyone. That solves the mystery as to why Kaino is Australian despite his name clearly being Japanese and the character being Japanese in the first game. Maybe even the first couple of games? I'm not sure, but I know for a fact in Mortal Kombat 1, he's Japanese. And the game also tells you he's been deported from every country, so he's not legally allowed to stay anywhere. He's that much of a criminal mastermind. Everyone hates him. In fact, you know what? It's now my permanent headcanon that Kaino is still Japanese, but after being deported from everywhere, the only country he could safely stay in is Australia. Because Australia still has giant patches of land where people don't actually live, there's no cities there or anything, and as a result, it's the best place to set up your criminal underground, and that's why Kaino just stays there as a refugee and adopted the Australian accent after staying there for many years. That's my new headcanon. He's still Japanese, but just stayed in Australia. Alright, and now's the part of the video where we talk about Kaino. So Kaino is famous for stealing his iconic moves from other characters, like his Kaino ball. Let's be honest, that's just the Blanca ball. And don't get me wrong, Kaino does look good while doing it, and he has done a pretty good job making that move his own, but let's be real, we all know where that move came from. Now outside of the Kaino ball, he also throws knives, and every single game he throws knives at you. Now where does he get all these knives from? I have no idea. It's my own headcanon that just like that one character from DC, he has a portal he can reach into and just pull out more knives, and you just never see him reach in there. I am brain farting on that character's name right now, but he was in the new Suicide Squad movie, but in that film the guns were just on his body, but in the comics he reaches into a parallel dimension, like a pocket dimension, and pulls out more guns. I think Kaino does that, but with knives. And then in some games, Kaino even has the famous eye laser, although oddly enough, I don't think he had it in MK9, which is bizarre. How could you not give him that as an attack in the reboot of the franchise? That was so weird to me. And by the way, Kaino's not even that good in the first NetherRealm game. He's mostly a grappler, but not because he has command grabs. It's just that his moves are so bad that a regular throw is one of your best options when you're close. And actually, he did have one command grab, but it was his unblockable X-ray, and you couldn't even combo into it. So the damage was super high, but the odds of landing it were super low. And that's because the move was pretty slow on startup, so the opponent could see you pop X-ray and then just jump away or backdash something. The move had armor, so in theory, you could react and then armor a move and grab them that way. And if you pulled that off, you would get some decent damage, but for the most part, not a very good X-ray, but it was one command grab that Kaino had. And then in later games like Mortal Kombat X, they took that grapple idea even further and gave him an entire grappler variation, which was sick. I think MKX is the best version of Kaino in the NetherRealm game. And then even in Mortal Kombat 11, he has a command grab that's pretty darn good. It's a really good command grab. It's one of the best things about him, actually. So ever since like the NetherRealm games, Kaino has been a grappler to some extent. However, once again in MK9, he didn't have the eye laser, and the reason I find that so insulting is that Kaino's face is the most iconic thing about him. And even though there is a lore reason why his face looks that way, let's be honest, they were definitely trying to capitalize on the Terminator film hypes back in the 90s. The developers of that first game were definitely trying to capitalize on the hype of the Terminator films that came out in the 90s. That is 110% the reason why Kaino's face looks that way. It's not to give him some sort of personality or an iconic look, it's to capitalize on the popularity of the Terminator film. And just to give you an idea of how big those films were in the 90s, a certain DC villain by the name of Deathstroke had to have his name legally changed because originally it was Deathstroke the Terminator. And in fact, a lot of fans knew him as the Terminator, but once those films became really popular, the comic book company had to change his name to just Deathstroke. But yeah, in a nutshell, that's why Kaino looks the way he does, because they wanted to make him look like Terminator, and it's stuck ever since. And I won't lie, his eye laser and his cybernetic parts are the coolest thing about him, in my personal opinion. And please let me know in the comments section what you love the most about Kaino, because if I'm being honest, I'm not the biggest Kaino fan. In fact, here's a bit of an embarrassing story that may upset some of you. Before MK11 was even announced, certain YouTubers like myself were actually flown out by Warner Brothers to California to see the game for the first time. There couldn't have been more than 100 people or so there. It was a very private get-together, but they had an early version of the game build, and you could only play as about 4 characters, and Kaino was not one of them. However, Kaino did still appear in the background of the Black Dragon stage. And of course, that's the case to this day. If you play Mortal Kombat 11 and pick that stage, you will see Kaino in the background, unless you play as him. However, at the time, I thought that seeing Kaino in the background meant that he wouldn't actually be playable, because that is the case in a lot of fighting games. If a character is not playable, the developers will still meet you in the middle and put the character on the stage somewhere, so you can't play as them, but at least you can still see how they look in that game's current graphics. For example, this happens all the time in Street Fighter, it happened in Smash Bros. Ultimate, and it happened in Guilty Gear to an extent. Anyway, my point is a lot of games do this. Street Fighter is also a great example. I'm not sure if I mentioned Street Fighter. So Kaino was in the background, and I thought that he just wouldn't be playable in the game. And that big reveal event is actually where I had the pleasure of meeting Wooly, and I told him straight up, you know, I don't think Kaino will be in this game, and I'm completely okay with that. Because even though I do respect him and his fan base, and I understand that he's one of the original characters, if anybody has to sit it out, I think Kaino is a good choice. And the look on Wooly's face made me sad because he was so disappointed. He just had a soft smile and said, man, that's rough, because I really like Kaino. And I immediately wanted to retract my statement. I was like, man, I feel you. I understand he's very popular. I just think that as far as characters go, he has the least going for him. Got a cyborg face and he's Australian, and that's about it. And that is genuinely how I feel about Kaino. I played him a bit more to research this video, and I like him more than I did. So I have more respect for him than when I first started this video. So once again, let me know in the comment section why you love Kaino or why you hate Kaino. It's an open discussion. Say what you want. It's your comment section. Have a ball. And while you're down there, once again, don't forget the promise you made to me. Leave a like down below and share this video on social media. That's the promise we made to each other. If this video doesn't blow up, I'm not taking a video request from the comment section ever again, alright? So it's on you. Share this video and leave a like. And while you're down there, if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and ring that bell. That way you never miss any future videos. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdogs.